and today's video is going to focus on layer cakes. This video is especially for studio owners and only requires the 6.5 inch batting die that you can get for your studio. First, let's talk about what a layer cake is. A layer cake is a pre-cut package of fabric that's 10 inches square and typically represents an entire fabric line from a particular manufacturer. You can also cut your own layer cakes by using the 10-inch square die that AccuQuilt makes for the studio cutter as well. That's what I did to make my layer cake, as I'm working on a special project. And there have often been questions about how can you accurately cut a layer cake without wasting fabric. This tip actually comes to us from Sherry in Arizona, who is a fan of AccuQuilt on Facebook, and she explained this technique on the site and gave me permission to record it to video so everyone else can really see it visually. First, what you need is a layer cake. So in my case, I have a set of 10-inch squares. And then, as I mentioned, you'll need the 6.5 inch square batting die. So it's got 4 squares on it. And what you do is you place up to 10 layers of fabric. So layer cakes tend to be about 40 pieces of fabric in the layer cake. And so to handle a complete layer cake, it's going to take 4 passes on your studio die. So what I'm doing here is I am aligning the layer cake with the straight edge just inside the line of the die. And it needs to be just inside the line of the die on 2 edges. And the layer cake is going to extend into the other squares without fully covering them. Now, typically, when you get a layer cake, there are usually at least 25 to 30 fabrics, if not 40 individual ones. It depends on the manufacturer that cut the layer cake and how many fabrics are in that particular line. In my case, I cut the same fabrics all at once, so when I go to sew these blocks together, I'm going to need to mix things up a little bit. So here's my layer cake. Again, I'm just checking to make sure that it's inside the blades of the die on the 2 outer edges, and I put my mat on top, and I'm going to step off screen here for a second and run this through the cutter. Alright, so when this comes off the cutter, what you'll end up with is I'm sure I have scissors somewhere, but we'll just put that aside. What you'll end up with is a 6.5 inch square. Then you'll end up with 2 3.5 by 6.5 inch rectangles and a 3.5 by 3.5 inch square. So as that comes off the die, I'll just kind of spread these apart a little bit so you can see this, that this is how they would come off the die. So these are the 4 pieces that you're going to get. Now, ideally, when you're running a layer cake, of course, the layers are going to be mixed up. And how you want to assemble them is to, or how I assemble them, is to take one of the 6.5 inch by 3.5 inch rectangles, and I stitch it to the 3.5 inch square. So that's one piece. Then I take the 6.5 inch square and attach that to the other rectangle. And so what I end up with are 2 pieces that look like this. So you have two options to assemble this block. You can either match the seams and put the block together this way, or you can choose to do non-matching seams and flip the other rectangle around and put the block together this way. And that's exactly what I've done here. So you can see that this is a very interesting block. And had I done the full 4 passes of the studio die, that's what I would end up with. And the square that you end up with is 9.5 inches square. So that's a pretty good, efficient use of the layer cake. And so ideally when you're putting this block together, you'll mix up the squares so that no two squares from the same block are touching. But you should have a lot of fun putting a quilt together like this. It's really easy and fun, and I really want to thank Sherry for the tip and for allowing me to put it on video. Happy quilting!